Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It's cold. I'm freezing right now.
Dozens of people denied access to a welfare office waiting room, forced outside in the pouring rain.
Constantly money out of my pocket.
We need to do something about it.
No relief. Metro Vancouver gas prices hit the highest in North American history. And
you'd lose your identity as raspberry capital of Canada.
Calling it quits, why BC's raspberry industry is on a major decline.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
good evening. Imagine being forced to stand outside a government office for hours while the waiting room inside is near empty. That's
what's been happening to people trying to get help from a welfare office in Abbotsford, unprotected from this year's snow and rain.
As Eric Rankin tells us, their complaints have the province promising change.
This has been the scene for months. People forced to line up outside the Abbotsford Welfare Office. The waiting room inside, off limits. A dozen chairs, mostly empty. During yesterday's rain and chilly 9-degree temperature, clients standing outside were soaked. No shelter, no seats.
It's cold. I'm freezing right now.
George Sather is fed up.
They just let you in a couple at a time. Everybody else waits outside in the elements.
Alice, not her real name, says she has stood outside as long as 2.5 hours, often with her little grandson in tow.
It was really hard. Yeah, really hard for him because I've had to tell people I don't want to lose my place in line, and then he gets restless.
It's appalling, and it is shamelessly classist.
Local pastor Jesse Wagonist first noticed the lineups a few days ago and says the people here are being treated like second-class citizens because they're disadvantaged.
Were it happening at the driver's licensing office or at Service Canada, it would not last, because the people who access those services, many of them feel like they ought to be treated a certain way.
The office supervisor wouldn't talk to us, but Wagonist says that supervisor told him staff are concerned about their safety and want to encourage clients to access services online instead of coming into the office. Most here feel they have to show up personally to deal with issues involving their welfare payments.
Well, most of the people don't have computers, first of all, or phones, so, you know, that doesn't really work.
I don't like going online. I don't put anything private online. I'd like to do everything in person.
Within minutes of us showing up with a news camera, suddenly everyone who was outside was let inside. An instant change in policy.
It's something that we'll work to correct.
BC's welfare boss Shane Simpson says the Abbotsford office will be getting a call.
It's not a practice.
And as Karen Larson reports, experts are predicting it's only going to get worse.
The pain at the pump has never hurt so bad in Metro Vancouver. Prices of $1.68.9 per litre in downtown, higher in White Rock, where it almost hit $1.70, a North American record.
Not happy at all. Yeah, it's frustrating because I have to drive for work.
That's insane. Like, what is it in the rest of Canada?
I think we're getting taxed, you know, out of existence.
Experts say the reason gas prices keep going up is because the supply from south of the border is going down.
U.S. refiners are having trouble to meet their own demand picture because you not only have the 2 refineries in Washington State, which traditionally provide gasoline into the Vancouver market out for maintenance, not completely, but parts of their units are being repaired. At the same time, we have at least 4 of 6 refineries who are going through unplanned maintenance in California.
But not all drivers are feeling the pinch.
We just have a little tiny gas engine that will charge when we run out of electricity. But essentially, we We have 2 electric cars. We don't run gas anymore.
So you're feeling pretty smug.
I'm feeling very smug.
I laugh when the gas prices go up.
Christopher Ong not only drives an electric vehicle, he makes his living selling them. And he says thanks to gas prices, business is booming.
I typically spend $300 a month on gas before having an electric car. So now my electricity bill probably went up $10, $20 a month.
For those who don't drive an electric, there's more pain ahead. Experts say our record gas prices are only going higher. Still, it could be worse. People in the United Kingdom are paying the equivalent of $2.10 Canadian per litre of unleaded fuel. Karen Larson, CBC News, Vancouver.
RCMP have wrapped up an investigation into alleged mail fraud during the 2018 municipal election in Surrey. Police now say 67 ballot applications were fraudulent, either incomplete or not signed by the voter. 2 applicants also attempted to have ballots sent to the wrong address, but no ballots were actually sent out. Investigators also looked into a complaint alleging one elections employee tried to influence a voter at the polling station. RCMP say the employee was then moved to another position. The report has been forwarded to Crown Counsel, which will decide whether charges are warranted.
Well, for decades, it's been known as the raspberry capital of Canada.
But now many Abbotsford farmers are calling it quits on the red fruit.
As the CBC's Tina Lovegreen explains, they say growing the berry is no longer profitable.
It's what Abbotsford is known for, but it's a title that's slowly diminishing.
This all used to be raspberry. We lost 6 or 7 years. We started planting blueberry over here, because the raspberry wasn't paying us to pay my mortgage.
At one point, Peter Thin had 140 acres of raspberries, but now he's down to just 20, ripping out field after field, replanting blueberries instead.
You have to change with the market.
Many other farmers in the region are doing the same thing, giving up on the red berry that once defined them.
The BC industry is in significant decline.
Chair of the BC Raspberry Council, James Bergen, says farmers just can't compete with cheaper product coming in from other countries.
They don't have the same restrictions. They don't have the same minimum wage. Labor is a big concern. One is the shortage of labor.
BC raspberry production was at its peak during the late 80s to early 90s, with 42 million pounds per year coming out of this region. But that number has fallen significantly to just under 17 million last year. And as for the number of growers, also declining from 500 at its peak to just 90. Losing acres of raspberries means breaking generations of hard work.
You'd lose your identity.
And it's a loss for consumers too.
If they get it from BC, they know that it's coming from a local source, reputable source.
Giving up on tradition isn't easy, especially when you've been farming raspberries since 1974, like Peter, who is passing on the family business to his grandson.
I talked to my grandpa too, and I said we need to plant more raspberry. You know, we need to get it. But when you look at the numbers, it's just not profitable anymore.
That's a dead bud there, likely winter injury.
And this year's cold snap in the middle of February, another blow to growers.
We know there's damage out there. Like I said, we just don't know exactly to what extent.
But the industry is working on a more resilient type of raspberry. Bergen is taking us to a field where a new variety called Squamish is being grown.
Usually you want them consumed within 5 to 7 days of harvest. So to get an extra 3-4 days of shelf life would be absolutely huge for our industry.
Something the provincial government also claims is a priority.
I've been talking with the federal government to secure funding to do research with the raspberry growers specifically on that.
There is no one solution that will save the industry.
When the time comes, people have to change it.
Changes made today to ensure a fruitful future for tomorrow as the land changes hands. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Abbotsford.
Well, with climate change a looming concern, many households are looking to cut back on energy use.
But as our Greg Rasmussen reports, it turns out new condo buildings in Metro Vancouver are using up twice as much energy as older ones.
More and more Canadians call condo towers like these home. They're often marketed as being green and energy efficient. But a new study by BC Hydro, the province's electric utility, says recent builds are burning up lots of watts.
Oftentimes everything's running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So the lights in the hallways and lobbies are always on, elevators are always running. So all of this is contributing to that overall electricity cost of the building.
The biggest problem is common areas and their amenities. These real estate videos highlight the luxury of swimming pools, outdoor hot tubs, even bowling alleys. But they don't make clear the hidden energy costs. The study says about half the energy used in newer luxury buildings is gobbled up by these features, about twice as much as buildings constructed in the 1980s.
And that's a conversation that we need to have as a society, is that do we want to live in these gas towers that are wasting a lot of electricity and losing a lot of heat?
One problem, says this expert, the cost is usually hidden inside maintenance fees.
Generally, the awareness is low. People pay their bills and pay their strata fees, don't have the details of what goes in the strata fees, but most importantly, often don't have a sense of what the opportunities are to reduce those costs.
He says to cut the bills, use occupancy sensors, upgrade to LED lights, and use computer-controlled heating and air conditioning. So are you seeing more of an emphasis lately on energy efficiency?
Increasingly so.
This architect warns, though, it can't be the only focus.
If we just drive everyone to make changes purely on energy efficiency and sort of limit every activity you would do to save energy, we might achieve that, but we'd also end up with buildings that we probably don't want to live in.
Vancouver has promised that by 2030, all new buildings will be zero emission. This new report helps show why that's going to be a tough goal to meet. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Vancouver.
Federal Conservative leader Andrew Scheer suggesting big energy projects will be a top priority if he's elected Prime Minister. Speaking to the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, Scheer says his government would improve investor certainty by supporting projects like the Trans Mountain expansion, and that he would pursue a pipeline between Western and Eastern Canada and scrap the federal carbon tax. He says some decisions simply won't get unanimous support.
Small vocal groups of people who are not satisfied with the result are able, through various measures, to achieve death by delay. And we need a government that realizes that you have to take some tough decisions. You are going to have to tell some people this process was fair, open, and transparent. It came to this conclusion. You might not like it, but you live in a country where you had that say, you had the ability to present.
Scheer's tour of the Lower Mainland continues with a stop at Vaisakhi tomorrow.
Well, some people who want to make Vancouver more walkable say one small change could make crosswalks a whole lot safer.
And they're wondering why it hasn't happened already, given 2 people have been hit and killed so far this year. The CBC's Joel Ballard is looking into the holdup.
If a city possessed a proven solution to increase pedestrian safety, it would be reasonable to expect they'd use it. Well, that's not the case, according to one critic.
In the city of Vancouver, we've had at times almost 1 pedestrian a month dying. The majority of them are over 60 years old, and the majority are male, and it's happening at intersections. And we need to do a better job at the city at looking at that.
James, a former city planner with Vancouver, says the solution is easy. It's called leading pedestrian intervals, or LPIs for short. It gives those walking about a 5-second head start while a vehicle's signal stays red.
We need to implement these everywhere. It's a cheap and an inexpensive way to save lives.
James says LPIs have been shown to reduce pedestrian vehicle collisions by as much as 60%.
This is what's really curious about not implementing LPIs. One of the things for the city's Vancouver transportation plan, the 2040 plan, is that pedestrians are supposed to be the #1 priority in the city, with cyclists and vehicle traffic following. And the easiest way to do that is to give them priority on the street.
In that same plan, the city highlighted that intersections are important since this is where about 75% of collisions involving pedestrians occur. LPIs were first suggested as a solution in 2012. 2 years later, the city installed the first LPI at Burrard and Davie. And so far, it's worked.
We see close to about a 17 to 20% reduction in conflicts between pedestrians and motorists at that particular location.
Last year, 3 more were installed around the city, all of them in the pilot stage, while Toronto has 80 and New York has more than 2,000. So what's the holdup in Vancouver?
It is something that we want to look at in a sort of measured way and take certainly the evidence-based approach. Look at the data, look at the traffic impacts.
Vancouver now has 5 years of data from the pilot, which James says is more than enough time. But still, the city seems content to drag its heels. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, hope you enjoyed the sunshine today. I don't think it's going to last.
I did.
Yeah?
I had a story to do in Victoria, so I got to fly over that. And if you're going to fly over, today was fantastic.
Well, la-di-da. All right, let's go to Christy now with a look at the weather.
Thanks, Anita. It has been a beautiful day across the Vancouver area, across much of BC, really lots of sunshine, but it's not going to last. It looks like we're seeing another Pacific system that's going to make its way through the weekend, bringing with it quite a bit of wet weather. There's a look at that system in our satellite imagery, moving towards the coast, bringing rainfall for areas like Vancouver, Victoria, and then towards the interior and at higher elevations, heavy snowfall. So it is going to mean some messy travel conditions through the weekend. As for how that times out, through the evening hours, still a little bit of cloud cover, but that system really starting to roll in through the overnight period and into early tomorrow morning. This is about 7 a.m. You can see that snowfall at the higher elevations and then that heavy rainfall towards the Vancouver area, into the island as well. Through the day, it will start to ease up. You might even see some breaks of sunshine through the afternoon. This is about 2 o'clock. You can still see quite a bit of showery weather towards North Vancouver, towards Victoria. You might see a few pop-up showers. Then through the afternoon, a little bit of a break. You could start to see a little bit of a changeover, some breaks in that cloud cover even, so some sunshine breaking through. Then into your Sunday, seeing the risk of a few light showers, but on a whole, it is going to be a nicer day for getting outside. In terms of how much rain we can expect, here's a look at our accumulations taking you through right till Sunday morning. Again, heavy rain at times, especially in those morning hours. That's when that's going to be the most aggressive, that system coming on shore. And then starting to ease up for your Sunday. Now, with the rain will come the winds starting to gust, especially towards the Victoria area. This is overnight into Sunday morning. You can see some very strong gusts up to about 65 kilometers per hour possible. Through the forecast region, here's a look at what you can expect for your day tomorrow. Again, showery weather, that heaviest rain towards the coast. Taking a closer look there in Victoria, 10 degrees, some windy weather as well, about 15 to 25 millimeters in the Squamish area. And again, a little bit of a mix over, some mixed precipitation and snowfall into the Fraser Valley. As for Vancouver's forecast, taking you through the next 7 days, here's a look at what you can expect. 11 degrees, breezy weather out there through the day. A chance of some light showers on Sunday, but otherwise you will see some sunshine. It will be not a bad day for getting outside. Temperatures really holding steady through the next 7 days, right in those low double digits. So maybe a little bit seasonally cool, a couple of degrees below seasonal, but not too bad out there. But you will see some unsettled weather. It looks like the chance of some light showery weather for your Monday, steadier rainfall Tuesday and Thursday, and again, more showers possible as you move towards next Friday.
All right. Thanks, Christy.
Well, numbers are at a 30-year low for the southern resident killer whale population, and Indigenous leaders are worried about the future of J-Pod.
Our Angela Sterrett was invited to witness a ceremony close to the San Juan Islands where Lummi Nation members prayed for the survival of the orca.
She was telling us, come and help me.
Last summer, the Lummi community just west of Bellingham was grieving, stricken, watching a mother orca carrying her dead baby for 17 days. The small community of 6,500 said it was like losing one of their own.
As sad as it was to me one of the tipping points.
The Salish Sea was once rich with salmon that the orca thrived on. Now the nation is lucky if it gets a couple days of fishing a season, hitting the whales and the Lummi hard.
Back then, it was very common to be fishing as one with the orcas. You know, we would see them often when I was a child. And there was a time when they used to come to Bellingham Bay and different places, and now they just don't. And with salmon came healthy orcas.
The chairman of the Lummi Nation says climate change, water pollution, overfishing, and tanker traffic are to blame for depleting the salmon stocks.
We are possibly the last generation who can do anything about it.
Legally, the Lummi are not allowed to intervene and feed the orcas. The responsibility falls to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. This is to ensure the orcas don't become dependent on humans and can survive in the wild. But it's something that the Lummi Nation disagrees with, calling the situation a state of emergency.
No more, not one more. We're going to save our Quethalmichan relatives. It's going to happen.
They can't legally feed the orcas, so they pray.
We weren't allowed to film it because of cultural protocol, but on the island behind me, elders and leaders from the Lummi Nation took part in a ceremony to feed the southern resident killer whale population that is endangered.
The ceremony ended with a spiritual feeding of J-Pod with a single fish, a humble gesture to what seems like an enormous problem.
We have to ask ourselves, well, how did we get here? And what are we going to do together? Because together we're stronger. What are we going to do to help fix it?
They believe their prayers through ceremony will help protect these waters from pollution and revive the salmon population and the orcas. Angela Sterrett, CBC News, on the Salish Sea, west of Bellingham.
Well, we're now into the final stretch of the Alberta election campaign, with voters heading to the polls on Tuesday.
And Albertans are being offered starkly different views on how to tackle the province's challenges.
Rafi Bujikanian has a look at each party's key promises and what it all means for the rest of Canada.
In a campaign dominated by talk of jobs and where the jobs are rooted in the oil patch, to paraphrase an old slogan, it's the carbon tax, stupid.
And we are going to write a Made in Alberta policy that works for our province and our industries.
The NDP's plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions remains a signature moment, and Rachel Notley's still all for it.
I think we have laid out a path that is going to ultimately lead us to a much better destination.
But the tax is a hard sell for those dependent on the oil and gas industry.
Now, if everybody wants to trade in their gun, trade in all their vehicles, shut the oil down completely, maybe. But it's not going to happen.
How could you be embarrassed about Alberta?
Jason Kenney hears that and says his first move will be to repeal the carbon tax.
It's led to the jobs crisis, to the flight of tens of billions of dollars of capital.
That doesn't convince everyone.
There's no evidence whatsoever that a carbon price ever put in place has actually damaged the economy and cut jobs in the way that we often hear its opponents claim.
He says long-term policies are the key, which brings us to the question of pipelines. Both parties support them, and even voters for whom environmental concerns are top of mind know why.
I completely understand what the expectations are for a party to win in Alberta, but yeah, it's definitely disappointing to be put in that position.
Still, the NDP and UCP do differ. Kenney wants to get the oil moving east through a resurrected Energy East project, a difficult sell in Quebec which would need to agree. Notley's sole focus has been the Trans Mountain pipeline, bought for billions by Ottawa, still in limbo after a court order. For both parties, oil to market is the key, and so a third question. What are the impacts on the rest of Canada? Jason Kenney's made no secret. If he wins, he will go to war with Ottawa over federal bills that would ban oil tanker traffic and reshape how pipelines are approved and authorized. Battles he's not certain to win.
I think it would be very unusual if the federal government had no ability whatsoever to protect the environment.
As for the NDP, even if its policies are closer to Ottawa's, Rachel Notley herself has shown she'll fight for the oil patch.
When Canadians head to the polls this fall, how Albertans vote won't be the deciding factor. But whoever they elect next week will help set the stage for that national conversation. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Edmonton.
Free food and a whole lot of fun will be had this weekend as Vancouver's Vaisakhi celebrations get underway.
Hundreds of thousands will mark the occasion at separate events held around the province this month. Vancouver's parade is scheduled for tomorrow, starting at the Ross Street Khalsa Diwan Society, 11 a.m., and it goes till 5 o'clock.
Awesome time. Have you ever been?
Yes, I have a couple of times, even walked in the parade one time. I've never been offered so much food in my life.
It's pretty amazing.
It's kept on
so
coming.
Let's talk a little more about that with some more information on Vaisakhi. Here you go. Outside of India, Surrey has one of the biggest Vaisakhi festivals in the world. Hundreds of thousands of people show up each year. Now, Vancouver's celebration is a little bit smaller, but still draws big crowds.
It's a worldwide celebration. People come from all over North America and even from other countries outside.
What is Vaisakhi? Vaisakhi started in India as a harvest festival, but if you're sick, it takes on extra significance.
Another word that you might commonly hear is Nagar Kirtan, which is the actual name for this event. Nagar Kirtan means singing the praises of the Creator with musical instruments in the street. It's more than just a parade or a procession or a social gathering, it's a spiritual gathering.
Everyone who visits a Sikh temple or gurdwara is offered a free meal, regardless of their religion or background. The tradition is called langar.
Langar is the community meal. Everyone is supposed to gather at the same level and to humble themselves and eat the same meal together and share despite any social differences.
It's in the spirit of langar that Sikhs offer free snacks and sweets at Vaisakhi. So if you are going to the festival, make sure you go hungry and feel free to leave your wallet at home.
Selfless service is a main cornerstone of the Sikh faith, and the purpose of service is to see the one light of God within everyone.
Now, if you're bringing your kids with you to either of the celebrations, Vancouver or Surrey, remember the crowds are massive and it's easy to get separated. So police have a few suggestions. Familiarize your family members with their surroundings and have a pre-planned meeting place. Bring your ID and contact information. Know where the missing persons tent emergency responders are located. Keep a current photo of your child on you just in case you need to describe them to police, and keep your children within eyesight at all times. And if you really want to get into it and you're looking for a few key phrases in Punjabi, give these a try.
Whenever any Sikh sees another Sikh, when they're approaching together, they'll fold their hands and they'll greet them. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
And when you're given that free meal, make sure to say...
In Punjabi, you can say Tanwad. Tanwad means thank you.
And have a great time. Anita, Bathe, CBC News.
That's you.
That's me.
That's you. That's great. Okay, I learned a lot.
Good. Glad I could help.
Great weekend. Great weekend. Lots going on this weekend. Vaisakhi and the Sun Run is this weekend as well. Yeah. And this next story has a more literal approach to the name. An unexpected star has emerged in a famously grueling 250-kilometer race through the Sahara Desert.
The heat was ferocious, you could say, but that didn't stop this dogged runner. Cactus going more than 70 kilometers today, crossing the finish line of Morocco's fabled 6-day ultra-marathon. Organizers say the dog showed up out of nowhere and seemed perfectly healthy. While others were relaxing, he was still running around getting belly rubs and treats and reminding runners that anything is possible.
Oh, boy. Did you write that?
Our producer, Matt Lowe. He likes to have fun with us.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Nice dog. Okay, what's going on here now? So we're not on television tonight because of hockey. We will be on television after the hockey game.
Yes.
That might be.
So if you want to see all these stories again, and of course, so much more content, you can watch us after the game.
Thanks for watching us right now.
Have a good night.